Welcome, my sisters, to Black Women Talking Back podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Elise, and I have the immense privilege of sitting down today with the Black, brilliant, and beautiful Shannon Amos. Shannon is a former television executive producer with over 20 years in the entertainment industry. After losing both her parents to elder abuse, including her father, the legendary actor John Amos, she shifted her life's work towards advocacy, healing, and education. Shannon is now a wellness entrepreneur, mindfulness educator, and founder of Zuri Retreats, where she helps others move through grief, general trauma, and injustice. She resides between Los Angeles and Tulum, Mexico, and is deeply committed to creating sacred spaces for healing, especially for Black and women of color. Welcome, Shannon, to Black Women Talking Back. It's a pleasure to having you on the podcast.
Thank you, Elise. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Absolutely. So you have done so much in your lifetime. So, but before we start talking about all that you've done and will be doing, let's just talk a little bit about how you show up in the world in terms of who you see yourself as a gift of life in this world. And so as a more than just a human being, but also a divine being that has purpose and power in this time in life. Tell us about who that person is.
I think what I lean into most is that I'm a wisdom keeper and that I'm here to share and bring the wisdom of our ancestors, of indigenous people, of natural healing to a number of people that are truly in the process of bringing transformation into their lives. I feel that I've been called to this work. In my past life, I was working in television production and as a producer. And after taking a journey myself, one that included traveling to backpacking across Southeast Asia solo to where I am today, um, has led me here. And I know that I'm now living a life that is purposeful and purpose driven. And I want to share that with others and share how other people can bring that into their lives and step into their true purpose as well.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And you are absolutely doing all that you are.
Thank you.
You are. Your life's purpose is absolutely flowing from your being. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. I think we all have the ability to step into that, but a lot of times it's fear that holds us back.
Mhm.
Fear and attachment, attachment to things, attachment to places, attachment to people. And yet we can fully create a life that includes all of the things, all of the people. It just may not look the way that we were taught that it would look, right? And I think if you're able to open your heart and your mind, um, and step a little bit more into flow and understanding that the universe and God is here to support you, and really truly believing in that, no matter what your faith or your background is, but knowing that you are always supported, that you can create any life that you desire.
Yes, I agree 100%. I think that I think especially for Black women that our greatest attachment and our greatest weakness is one and the same, which is our attachment to our beliefs. Uh,
Mhm.
we've just been so trained and socialized and raised and taught and all those things. I mean, we from systems to communities to parenting to schools. I mean, at every level of experience of life, Black women are told who they can be and who they can't be, what they can do and what they cannot do. Um, and even I think that the times when we branch out a little bit further than what one of those systems has told us we can be and do, it's just a little bit. Number one, it's just a little bit of a branching out, and then we do that with such insecurity because of the fear that we're not supposed to, that we're
Yes,
more that we should be, that we're doing more than we should do. Um,
absolutely.
and so, that I'm just so glad that you mentioned attachments because I really feel like that if we could detach from some of the historical and cultural beliefs that we have, American culture, Western culture, and even some Black cultural beliefs that
Mhm.
hold us hostage. I'm like, if we have any beliefs about ourselves that don't allow us to live our full lives, then for
Mm.
me, that's a belief that needs to be let go.
Absolutely, and you're absolutely right. It is a process of unlearning, and to really bloom, to really step into everything that you are and everything that you were meant to be and everything that your ancestors wanted for you. You have to do a lot of unlearning. You have to do a lot of peeling back of layers and layers of teachings, because we have as a people been colonized. We have as a people been taught to subscribe to certain things. We've been taught, the European standards of beauty are where we need to align ourselves. And every day, I love seeing that more and more of us are waking up to understanding where those teachings have come from and why we've been taught. Whether it's through religion, through cultural traditions, um, through morals or values that have gone back generations, what that was in the past and where we are now, and how we have to do the work to continue to move through and let go of those, some of those thoughts and some of those teachings, and realize that we are moving into a new world. We've been moving into a new world, and in order to survive as not only Black people, but as a species, as humans, we have to evolve. We have to do the work to let go of so many of these things in order to really step into our power. And that's why I always go back to ancestral wisdom, and I always go back to remembering and reclaiming who we truly are.
Yes. Yes. And I would add to that, and when we talk about just some of the pushback that I hear very often around ancestral wisdom, um, I don't think you or anyone else that's teaching around that area is implying that ancestral wisdom is always correct. So we're not trying to replace one set of rules with another set of rules. We're trying to replace
Mhm.
another set of experiences and truths that were lived through those experience for us to glean from, rather than right now what we glean from are the experiences and the truths of histories of other people. And the ancestral work helps us to say, oh, let's look at very specifically what our ancestors experienced. What was the wisdom that they gained along their pathway? What did they learn to do and not to do? And so, what can I learn from my ancestors? It's not so much that our ancestors were perfect and they did everything right, but their life and their experiences were different, and it's so much more for us to learn that we haven't learned because we've been inundated with other people's history and experiences. Other people's ancestral experience
Yes,
history,
and
yes.
exactly, and for me, ancestral wisdom goes even beyond that. It goes into, when I say ancestral wisdom, even beyond the 7 generations back or the 7 generations forward that have yet to come. I even go deeper to say the the original creation of and through spirit, the ancestral wisdom that comes through spirit,
Mhm,
and how we have to lean back into spirit and into our inner guidance and our inner GPS. And all of that is connected to spirit. It's connected to mother nature. It's connected to, whether you want to call it God, the universe. I call her And I know that that's uncomfortable for some people because the teaching is him, but nature holds all the wisdom that we need. Nature is alive and breathing and beating around us all of the time. And by simply reconnecting with nature, by reconnecting with the earth and with the pulse and the rhythm of life, that's the ancestral wisdom that I'm speaking of, more so than, yes, I give reverence and honor the generations before me, but knowing that it's all connected. My ancestors and the earth are all connected, and they are always walking with us. They are always guiding our path if we allow that. And a lot of us have been conditioned and taught not to lean into that, that that's taboo. And in religion, I've had people think that, oh, calling on your ancestors is demonic. And a lot of those belief systems have come from colonization.
Yes. I was blessed to be in Ghana a couple months ago in August and spent some time with one of the spiritual leaders there in his community. And he he said something that I should have made sense to me a long time ago, but it just was like a aha moment when he said it. He said there is no spirituality without nature. He said nature and
Absolutely.
spirituality is one. There
Yep.
is no nature without spirituality, and there is no spirituality without nature.
Absolutely.
And and then he just began to unpack that, which is something I won't go into, but I was just like, "Aha, aha, aha," with every sentence. It just made so much sense to see the way in which our ancestors, already understood that spirituality and nature are one.
Absolutely, and that's the wisdom that they held because they were here in a different time where they relied on their connection to nature. They
Yes.
relied on the stars and the moon for their guidance. They relied on the weather and the air and the way the wind blew and the way the leaves fell and how trees or things would sprout from the ground. Like they knew how to navigate and survive because they leaned into nature. As we've evolved as a species, we've disconnected from that nature. We've disconnected from the earth. And many of us spend more time now in spaces where we're not in the sun. As melanated people, we need the sun. We
Yes.
need the sun to, our own DNA needs the sun, and we can gain wisdom. That there's so many new sciences and technologies coming out saying that, there's certain things that we can do like grounding, walking on the earth, but that our ancestors were doing that hundreds of years ago,
Right.
somewhere along the path shoes were made. And we disconnected from that energy and from that vibration. And so that's the ancestral wisdom that our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, etc., carried. They had that knowledge and that wisdom. And as we become more disconnected from that, we become more disconnected from our true authentic selves. And we're in a capitalistic, consumeristic culture and society that tells us we need all these things to be healthy and happy, when the truth is, if we just go out in nature, we can put our body back in homeostasis, and nature can give us all of the medicine that we need. And not to discount any Western medicines, because there are clearly Western medicines that do help us, but I truly believe there's a cure for everything in nature.
Mhm. Mhm. That everything we need right now, everything we need is on this planet and
Yeah.
in this universe. Yes.
Yes, yes.
Why else would it exist?
Exactly, and we need to honor her. We need to honor the planet more. We need
Yes.
to, get more connected with it. And so that's so funny. I just ran into some women on the street walking. I'm in Tulum and I'm walking to this beautiful little cafe in the jungle, and it's surrounded by trees, and these sisters just got here 2 days ago from LA, and they were like, "Yeah, it's really jungly around here." You know, and you can interpret that to be many things,
Yeah.
but I would gather from the look on their faces and their expressions that it was a little overwhelming because they've been so disconnected from it. Being in it can be uncomfortable.
Mhm.
when you haven't been used to it. You hear something snap or crackle in the bushes and you're ready to jump.
Mhm.
But, it's life unfolding around us all the time.
Yes. 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 Being birthed. Yes. Being birthed
Mhm.
and dying and being rebirthed. And yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
Yes.
And so living here, for me, making the move to Mexico, connecting with Mayan culture, connecting with people who are deeply connected to the earth, to the ground, to the jungle, understanding their belief around guardians of nature and of spirit, has kept me here because it has held me, and the air and the trees and everything has just held me, and it has stabilized me. I don't feel as stressed, I don't feel as anxious. And when I come into the States now, I enjoy my time, I see my family and my friends, but after about 2 weeks I start to feel unsteady. I start
Mm.
to feel a little disconnected, and I find myself really craving spaces like the one I'm sitting in right now, where I'm surrounded by the sound of water, by trees, nature, even in the evening. It does something for me, and I want to bring people into spaces like this, but also give them comfort and ease them out of what they're used to so that they can acclimate.
Mhm.
You know, I remember my first retreat in Mexico where I invited people and I was like, I have to find a place that has some semblance of luxury, but also maybe a little eco-friendly, a little eco-luxury, and introduce Black women, because I already know. My best friend, if you tell her there's gonna be a bug somewhere, she's like, yeah, I'm good. So I know that there's a process of bringing people into spaces like this, and it's not for everyone right away.
Mhm.
But I think if you can introduce people in a way where you can really, take away some of the fear and the anxiety and introduce them, they can move into these kind of spaces and start to make that connection. And what I always see is profound breakthroughs every time, every time.
Yes. Yes. We're always afraid of what we don't know. We've been taught that too as well. To be
Yeah,
afraid of
neuro
what we don't know.
Exactly, and neuroscience will show you that if we allow ourselves to get out of our comfort zone,
Yes.
that we're literally firing up new neural pathways,
Yes.
and that is allowing us to really do the most work and find the most growth. And
Yes.
I think that's why retreats work so well for people because, you're in the hustle and bustle, you're in the game, and then boom, you're on a plane somewhere, and now you're immersed in nature, you're immersed in a learning environment, and little by little, those walls come down. And that's where, if you're in the right group and you're surrounded by the right folks and you're learning the right tools, you can make a huge change in a week out of your life, or 2 weeks out of your life. And people often don't realize how deep that is. It was a retreat that changed my life.
Mm.
I went into the Amazon, into Peru, and I did a 2-week retreat that literally changed my life, and I came back rethinking everything, and that's how I ended up starting a company and leaving the US.
All right, so we're gonna get deeper into that a little bit later in the podcast.
Okay.
Let me let me back up a little bit. And
Yes.
I'm glad we had a chance to have this preliminary conversation because I want to ask the question. I hear all your wisdom coming forth, and I
Mhm.
know all the things that you have done and you are doing and are still planning to do. And so let's face it, you got a busy life.
Yes.
And
It is.
recognizing that busy is relative and is measurable and can mean a lot of different things, but basically I'm just trying to say you have a lot of different things going on in your life. And so I want to ask the question, with so much going on, so much on your plate, number one, how do you love yourself? How do you
Mhm.
find time, space, and energy to love yourself?
I
And how do
mhm.
you care for yourself?
I
Believe it,
think
those are two different things.
Yes, absolutely. And I think first I would reframe busy. I would say I live an intentional life. Everything that I do has intention behind it. So the work that I'm doing, the life that I'm creating is very intentional, every part of it. And there's so much love being poured into every part of it, whether it's me designing the website, me hosting guests for retreats, me curating an experience somewhere in the world. Everything is done with so much intention and detail. And so pouring love into everything is part of how I love myself. It's sharing the love that's in my heart. It's sharing the creativity that flows through my veins. And then caring for myself is that I allow myself the space for rest. I listen to my body. If I need to sleep in a little later on a day, I sleep in because I don't have to report somewhere. And learning to listen means that resting isn't being lazy, it's necessary because I can't pour from an empty cup. And so also surrounding myself with amazing, incredible people who I call my tribe, that when I am going through life challenges or changes, that I have a support system that lifts me up, that picks me up, that, holds me down. Whatever it is that I need, they're there to support me. And that didn't happen by accident either. It happened when one of my mentors said, you know, she said, if you want a teacher, ask for it, and a teacher will appear. And I did that, and a teacher appeared, and another one appeared. And, I wanted tribe. Well, I created that too. And all of it comes from a heartfelt connection. You know, right before this call, I'm sitting at a table in the jungle, and this woman sees me sitting with two people, and she's like, "Can I sit with you guys? I don't know what's over here, but I just want to sit with you." And she said she was attracted to our energy. And that's how it works.
Yeah.
When you walk with an open heart and you are truly authentic in who you are, and you are radiating a frequency and vibrational love, you will attract that. And then you have to use the discernment, to make sure that those you are attracting are there for the right
Yes.
reason.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So, and that can be like moth to a flame. It took a lot of learning to understand that, because in my earlier years of this work, I was attracting all kinds of folks, people who want to gravitate towards that because they're energy vampires. And,
Mhm.
you kind of have to learn to navigate that. But, through the years I have, and now I have this amazing tribe of people around me, and we all support each other. We are women supporting women, and I have my brothers, the men in my life, that show up, and we can all create that. And you don't even have to be, you can be an introvert and still create that if your heart is open.
Yes. And the flip side of that coin, I believe, is that, it's happening whether we are acknowledging it or not. We are attracting our energy
Yes.
is drawing
Yes.
people and situations to us. And
Yeah.
so the question is, as you said earlier, whether two things. One, are you being intentional about the energy that you're creating and sending out? And then secondly, are you using any discerning tools to be able to discern when those things and people come into your life, are they here for a time? Should you let them in or not let them in? Everything, every good and wonderful thing that we attract is not necessarily for us. The world is
Exactly.
full of beautiful, wonderful things that we can attract to us.
Mhm.
But this our life is limited here and we have purpose.
Yes.
And so we can't say yes to every beautiful opportunity and to every
Right.
beautiful thing in person. We have to be able to discern what's for us now in this life, what fits in our purpose and in our direction, and what doesn't.
Absolutely. And I think with that comes a lot of self work. When you do the work with yourself, when you truly honor that work, meaning all of the practices, whatever tools that you can gather from, self care practices to um, learning how to communicate, learning how to listen, being more mindful, being in your self-awareness. When you really hone those tools, you then not only attract your mirror, you will attract beautiful, amazing people, and every now and then something else might slip through the cracks. But if you are really tapped in, I believe that your spirit and your inner guidance will tell you, whoa, slow down and see what's going on over here. If this is really aligning with you, if this person or this opportunity is truly in alignment with what it is that you need to do in your life, or are they here to give you a lesson, or are they here to make a connection, or are they here to get you to step into your higher purpose. I mean, people are going to come and opportunities are going to come. And life is always going to, continue to throw us different curveballs from time to time, but the deeper you get into this work, the more I think you have the ability to navigate and to move through the obstacle course rather than get swallowed by it.
Yeah,
And a lot of that comes with a practice of self-awareness, really listening to your body, what's coming up for you when you're in a space with someone, what's coming up when an opportunity presents itself. Are you feeling fear? Are you feeling anxiety? How is it landing in your body? And really noticing those things, because a lot of times when we're so dysregulated by the life that we're living that we're not even reading the room. We're so dysregulated, we don't even know that when chaos is in front of us, But when we are regulated, when you are really truly living in homeostasis and you are feeling peaceful, the soon as something disrupts that, you're like, oh no.
mhm,
Mm-mm. No, I'm not doing this. I don't want that. I don't care what it comes with, and I think that's the beauty of really doing this work of honoring yourself and honoring your peace and protecting it. The more you do that work, the more aligned you become with other people who are also in that and on that path.
absolutely, absolutely. Um, as we said earlier, the systems of this world has just devalued Black women so, and that internalized belief system, to whatever degree, from whether it's a little bit or a whole lot, has done such damage that we don't, that when our, even when our spirit intuits or as you says, reads the room,
Mhm.
we don't
Mhm.
trust, that voice, because we're so used to any wisdom or direction comes from outside, doesn't come from within. Um,
Absolutely.
and so those thoughts, those ideas, whether they're creative ideas and thoughts or whether they are get out
Yes,
ideas and
yes.
thoughts, um, we tend not to think that that could possibly be right, because we don't trust our own voices. We don't
Absolutely.
trust our own intuition.
And that goes back to when that little voice inside of us pops up and says you're not good enough, or that little voice inside of you is, going down a rabbit hole with fear. And, I tell my daughter this. I say, she'll be like, Mom, I feel overwhelmed. This is happening, that's happening. She'll start to spiral, right?
Mhm.
We all do it. Fear, anxiety, all the things. Like you start thinking all the negative thoughts. And I'll just say to her, and what if everything just works out? What if everything ends up being what you want it to be? And she'll take a breath and laugh. Like, because a lot of times we get in these loops, and those loops come from our past trauma,
Yeah.
and not being validated by the world, not being validated by Western culture. But guess what? It's time for us to wake up and not we cannot continue to move on a path that we need their validation. It's time to reclaim who we are, what we are, our power, our ability, and we have to really, find our true north and stay laser focused on that, because we're not going to get that validation from the outside world. We're lucky if we got it from our parents. We're blessed if we got it from our upbringing, but many of us didn't.
Right.
And so that little voice is going to pop up often. And that's when you have an opportunity to reframe it and say, and what if everything does work out? And what if I have you have to be audacious. You have to say,
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this no matter what. And I'm not letting anything stop me.
Yes. And it's never too late. It's never too late
Never too late.
to know you. To know yourself. It's never too late to become
Yes.
self-aware. It's never too
Yep.
late to begin to trust your own voice. I was
Yes.
I was somewhere just the other day, and this she was talking to herself, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." She said, "I don't know if you talk to yourself." I said, "Girl, I talk to myself all the time. I am
Yeah.
the first person I talk to. I trust myself
Yes.
more than
Yes.
anybody else." So she
Yes.
said, "Well, you don't answer, do you?" I said, "Absolutely, I answer. Why would I ask
Um,
myself a question and not answer it?
right.
On the I
Yeah.
have the wisdom." What?
And that's an old wives' tale, right? Like my dad used to say that. I would say, "Dad, you talking to yourself, or I'm only crazy if I'm answering myself." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's something that was a saying that was handed down, right?"
Right, right.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
talk to myself too, and I answer myself. And
Yes.
when I do things, sometimes I'll say out loud, like, "Are you serious? Did you just do that?" And then I can laugh at myself. You
Yes.
know, and I think that we have to have a sense of humor about that, but we honestly need to embrace that. Yes, we should have conversations with ourselves.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we need to just sit down and listen, meaning be
Yes.
quiet, be
Yes.
still. They say praying is talking to God, and I say meditation is listening.
Mhm.
Sit still and just get with yourself and listen. But a lot of people get really uncomfortable just being still, just being quiet.
Yeah, that's all that other history, cultural
Hmm.
history has been put on us.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but that also comes back to a practice. We have to be in a practice so that we can work those muscles and that muscle of resistance, because resistance is always going to come up when we're out of our comfort zone. Anytime, like even here in this jungle, I could walk in and easily be like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. It's nighttime. It's time to leave." Or I can get out of my comfort zone and continue on this path and think positive thoughts and beautiful things and have a really beautiful experience. And I did, and I am because I was willing to say yes to myself and take this leap.
Yes.
And more of us need to say yes and stop making excuses, because that ultimately is a part of procrastination, and knowing you want something and then talking yourself out of it. Yeah. And not just a thing, but like wanting to better your life, but then coming up with all the excuses of why you can't do it. I hear it all the time.
Yeah.
I took all these women to Portugal on a trip, and so many of them were like, "So how did you do this? How did you just leave? And what about this? What about that?" And I remember going through all those emotions. What about my house? What about my car? What about my things? What about my daughter? You know? But there's a solution for all of it.
Right.
I just had to get out of my head. You can sell the things, you can donate the things, you can bless somebody with your things. "Oh, I can never let go of my things." Well, then your things have you.
Yes.
You don't have them. I did. And um it is a different way of life to make that kind of leap, but that was what was calling my heart. That might not be for the next person,
Right.
but that was what was calling my heart, and I feel like I'm grateful because I did create this and I get to live this life.
Yeah. Yes. And whatever the life is for each individual, and I know this word has become so overused, but the reality is it does require a practice. It does require
Yes.
creating a practice. Not a practice because woo 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 practice means something
Mhm.
out of this world, but because the norms of the world send us in
Mhm.
one direction that
Yep.
is that is limiting. And in order for you to break those norms, you have to start creating other ways of doing and being. And those
Absolutely.
other ways of doing or being are simply practices. They're not that they're woo 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 or because they came from India or because they came from Africa. It's because you have, if you want to know, if you want to become self aware, if you want to know yourself, fall in
Mhm,
love with yourself,
mhm.
care for yourself, be connected to nature, be connected to this universe. If you desire more for your life, you have to break free from all of the chains that this world and the cultures of this world have held us down with.
Yes, yes, and to be able to step back and see the design of that and how intentional that has been in the US.
Yes,
And around the world, because much of the world will follow what the US does, but to see what Western culture, what it's been built on, what Western society has been built on, all the lies, all the miseducation, we're at like a pivotal point right now because they're realizing that we're learning too much too fast and now they want to take us backwards. And it's almost comical because you can't take us back because we're going to keep moving forward no matter what. And you may take a select few back. You might get some people to fall in and fall for the nonsense. You may get a certain number of people to believe the fear and the fear mongering and the hype, but the reality is that we are shifting and we are growing and the information is getting out. So what do they do now by design? Well, let's feed you a bunch of misinformation. Let's tell you that that's not true and this is not true and let's stage things to make it look a certain way. But a great number of us are able to see beyond that.
yes,
And that's why we are out here doing this work. And it's why I feel like we're also at almost this, not a tipping point, but maybe it is a tipping point. But I do feel like we're at a place now where if we have that knowledge, we have to share it. We have to educate our young people. We have to support them and help them remember. And so that's why I'm in the work that I'm in because I feel like the more people I can touch, the more people I can wake up to their authentic selves and to remind them, or I can guide them to a place to where they can get into this work, then the more we're elevating humanity, the more we're elevating our culture. We've been left out of rooms for too long, so let's go create our own rooms. We don't need to wait for y'all. We can
yes,
create our own world. We can create our own heaven on earth. We don't have to live in your nightmare version out of your fear of who we are, because that's all it is. It's the fear of who we are as a people. So it's the global west has really done a number on who we are and their portrayal of who we are, but many of us are waking up and knowing that yeah, that's not the truth. And
yes,
we are these incredible amazing humans that hold so much power and beauty and light, and we've always been that people, and the more we can align ourselves with that and really be that, the more we're able to shift things.
yes, yes. And that all begins with self awareness. It
Yes.
begins with each individual becoming more aware of who they truly are.
Yes,
And then you can really see that allows you to see other human beings who they truly are. And then
absolutely.
that increases your value, the value you hold in community, and that drives you to want to have more of that kind of community. And it's
Mhm.
that collectiveness that brings about change, any kind of change.
That's
Uh,
how I can make. Mhm.
which
Absolutely.
brings me to this next question. Is exactly where we are. Um, Tell us about, so you mentioned earlier, that you started on this pilgrimage. And so tell us
Mhm.
what led you to a pilgrimage in Peru? What drove you to Peru or
Mhm.
called you to Peru? Uh,
Mhm.
and what was the result? What was the result of that trip?
What called me to it was I had oh,
I'm
it's okay.
sorry. I'm sorry, Shannon. I need
Yeah.
to back up. I need to back
Okay.
up. I need to
Mhm.
back up. I'm glad it worked out this way because I think it sets the tone perfectly because
Mhm.
we've been talking about all this personal
Mhm.
work and worth. but I skipped the question, what drew you to producing? So let's talk about that earlier part of your life where you were deeply involved in the entertainment business, where you were
Mhm.
producing television shows.
Yep,
That's a huge difference from where you are now. So tell us a little
absolutely.
bit what attracted you to entertainment and specifically to producing. What attracted
I
you to producing?
I grew up in a household, an entertainment household. My father was a legendary actor, John Amos, from Good Times and Roots and Coming to America. And I grew up on sound stages and watching him work. I was a little girl playing on set with, I'm about to date myself, but I don't care. I'm proud to be alive. I used to dance on with the Carol Burnett dancers and be on set with All in the Family. Remember Archie Bunker, and my dad was working at CBS Studios down the hall from all of these shows. And that was, my first exposure to Hollywood. And, I'm grateful to have had that experience, to have grown up with my father and be introduced to luminaries like Maya Angelou and Miles Davis and Cicely Houston, and to see people like that, come into our home, Ben Vereen, people of that caliber. And yet I was a kid and they were just people, and I didn't even realize till I got older, like, who they really were and what a big deal and what a mark they would leave on culture and on our culture. But um I grew up in Hollywood, and my father would be the one to kind of guide me to get behind the camera, and he'd tell me, "You'll have much more creative control and you'll be more powerful if you get behind the camera than in front of the camera." And I think a lot of that also came from his own pain working in the industry. He knew what they would do to me at that point in the entertainment industry. And my father's second wife was an actor, Lillian Layman, and she would tell me how she would go for casting calls and they would tell her she wasn't dark enough, her lips weren't big enough, her nose wasn't wide enough. They oftentimes didn't know how to cast her because she was more fair complected and had more European features. And my dad felt like that would destroy me. He knew I was a very sensitive child. And so he felt like, if you want to be in this industry, you need to get behind the camera. And so he kind of prepared me for that. He would put me on calls when he was talking to producers or in meetings with directors. He would bring me on set and he would sit me next to the directors and let me watch, and with the producers and let me watch. And so I think it was kind of a natural transition. I think as children, we lean into what we're exposed to, and that's what I was exposed to. And on the other hand, my mother was an equestrian and an artist, and so I was also very creative. I also loved animals, and I grew up on a ranch. So I also and she was a medicine woman in her own ways because she grew everything and she made everything by hand. And so I think that I always carried a part of her as well. And that's what would lead me into television. My first job was at Yo MTV Raps, and I worked my way up from a production assistant to executive producer. I worked for pretty much almost every studio, from America's Most Wanted to BET to ABC, Paramount, Warner Brothers. I eventually, left Warner Brothers and became an executive producer and worked with Russell Simmons and Tracy Edmonds and numerous other people in the industry. And at the time that I started to peak out, I think where I started to burn out was after working in corporate at Warner Brothers. I found myself really challenged in that corporate environment. I felt like the fires I was fighting had a lot to do with race and their idea of what Black culture was and what Black people want. And it was a very toxic environment to me. And when I left Warner Brothers, I started my own production company and I stayed in that for several years. And then, as I think everything in entertainment was starting to shift to digital, and we moved into the digital space. I started talent managing influencers before they even knew what to call them, and I had success with that. And I started to really get into social media before, social media was they even really knew what to do with that. And I was able to work with some really amazing influencers and build brand franchises, and I had success in that. But around the same time that companies started to catch on and, you know, came in and started like courting my talent away because now they knew what to do with them. Um, my mom would end up transitioning.
Mhm.
And, if you've ever experienced grief and the loss of a beloved like your mother or your father, you know that it can break you wide open. And I had been on a journey as she had been really ill in the last days of her life. And I had been on a long grief walk with my mother. My mother had went in for a routine hysterectomy that had left her blind and quadriplegic. And, I had been part of caregiving for her and walking with her through that journey. And as I had been grieving her for 20 years. She lived 20 years like that, bedridden. Doctor said she would only live 2 and she lived 20. And I think she was my greatest teacher because I witnessed her transcend her anger, her frustration, her fear, and really just embrace like whatever. I remember she told me once, I said, "Mom, how do you do it? I don't even, I would will myself to die." And cause she couldn't do anything for herself. She couldn't feed herself. She couldn't sit up. She couldn't even scratch an itch if she had one. Like she literally was trapped in her body. And I watched her move through that and move into such a place of grace and beauty and gratitude. Gratitude for the people who cared for her and understanding how hard their jobs must be and not wanting to make their lives any more difficult. And one time she said to me, I said, "Mom, how do you do this?" And she said, "You know, if all I have to look forward to is the sound of your voice or my granddaughter's laughter or the taste of my food, that's enough for me."
Mm.
And that changed everything for me. I thought like, how can I move through life angry or upset or mad about things, or like how can I like get out of bed, not get out of bed in the morning and complain about, something when like even going for a walk when I have my legs and she doesn't, So it started, I think that was the beginning of a change in my life.
Mhm.
And when she passed, I was present with her, and I had a very ethereal, very beautiful, it was a gift to walk her home. Our ancestors were present. I felt everything. She walked me through the process. She told me my grandparents were in the room. She said things to me about what would happen in my future that have unfolded. And it was just a really magical, beautiful time. And after she passed, I decided to, leave and for my own self-care, for my own well-being. It was something I always wanted to do, was to travel abroad and to just go by myself. I felt like if I didn't, I call it my solo sabbatical because I feel like if I didn't go, I was just going to fall apart.
Mhm.
So I tell people, I don't know if it was a nervous breakdown or if I was crazy, but I left with $700 on a one-way ticket, and it wasn't because I didn't have money or couldn't get the money. I wanted to see how far I could go.
Mhm.
And so I booked a one-way flight to Bali, and that was the beginning of what would be a year in 12 different countries. And during that time, I studied yoga in India, in South Goa, India. I became a certified yoga teacher. I then started teaching yoga in Thailand, and then I would travel on to various other countries and volunteer and earn my keep. And I lived with indigenous people. I stayed with the Hmong Black Hill tribe in Vietnam. I lived in some very humble places, and I found people with the biggest hearts. And and then I sort of got intentional. I want to meet women who are like medicine women. And so I called that in and it happened. And I just started meeting like amazing wisdom keepers and women in different spaces, and they would take me under their wing. And eventually I ended up in Peru. where I sat with Maestra Wastina of the Shipibo Kanibo people in an ayahuasca ceremony. And if you don't know what ayahuasca is, it's an ethnogenic brew that's made from the capi vine and a root that has a psychedelic effect. And I sat with the medicine and it changed my life. I got the download that I would be working with people of color and that my purpose and my calling on this earth was to bring people into the medicine and to help them heal.
Mm.
And my initial response was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I was like, this is a lot of work. I don't think I could do that. And so I didn't listen right away. It took me about a year. And then I ended up in Mexico meeting the protege of Maestro Wastina. His name is Ivan Rodriguez. And Ivan and I connected, and I started bringing people to him into Aya ceremonies. And that would lead me into creating retreats. And so it happened very organically. Initially, it was people coming to me saying that they would only sit if I would sit with them, that they were scared and they didn't know who to trust. And, as a lot of Black people, I learned that, trust is a huge factor. We don't have trust in our medical system, let alone some, random person in the jungle. So they wanted support. And so I started sitting in ceremony supporting people, and that would lead me to co facilitating, which led me into curating and creating retreats. And now, while I do work with plant medicine, I also create spaces without plant medicine so that I can introduce people to other holistic practices. So I work with both psychedelic and non-psychedelic plant medicines to help people reconnect with who they are, to connect with the divine, and to remember and to reclaim their inherent birthright, which is plants. Plants are our medicine.
Wow, $700.
And a one-way ticket. That was a little crazy. I admit now, I don't even know if I could. Well, I could
But
do it
all
now.
that came out of that $700 and a one-way ticket, that's
Yeah.
a lot of return on the investment. That's a lot of return on the investment for such a
Yeah.
small investment.
And you know what? It was hands down, aside from having my daughter, the best year of my life.
Yeah.
Best year of my life. Like I really got to see what it means to be in flow, to be in the flow state, to literally wake up in the morning, not know where you're going to go or what you're going to do, and just trust.
Mhm.
And I can't even say that I've lived my life that way since. I didn't want to come back. I wanted to just continue living that way. And I met other people that lived that way. I remember meeting this really beautiful Filipino man at a retreat center in uh in the Philippines, in Bohol, Philippines. It was called the Firefly Inn, and he was teaching yoga there. And he literally had a bag that was like, it was like not even probably 10 ounces or 20 ounces. Maybe it was a pound or two that he was traveling the world with.
Wow.
And he was one of the most happiest, beautiful souls. He left an imprint on me,
Mhm.
and he encouraged me at that time. I had like a little suitcase. I ended up leaving that after I met him and like literally traveling from country to country with very little belongings and completely free, not tethered to anything. And it was life-changing. It built my self-confidence because I had to trust myself. I had to navigate places without language. I had to navigate. This was before Google Translate and all of that, so it was, it's charades in some places. And I had to really trust my own ability to discern if people were good or not. And it was a lot of sitting alone and crying and grieving and moving through the process of letting go of my mother, and yet also rediscovering her in so many places and spaces and how she showed up through my whole journey. And I think that's where I really started to make such a deep connection with spirit. I mean, it happened in her hospital room when she was transitioning, but it continued. All the things that she told me I would see and experience, I experienced on my journey. It was amazing.
So how did the loss of your mom in that spiritual journey prepare you, if at all, for the loss of your dad?
It was same but different. And same in the sense that I have a sibling who has struggled with addiction for years and mental health issues. And I went through a really difficult time with him and my mother in her process. And by the time my dad, some years later, would develop dementia, um, I started to become concerned that we were going to see a repeat of the same pattern with my mother, which was my brother had started isolating her and removing her from family and abusing her funds. And we went through something very similar with my dad. And honestly, with my father, it was different because he literally cut him off from, because of my dad's dementia, cut him off from the whole family. And my not just our family, but from my dad's best friend, from the only man he knew as his brother, from his grandchildren, he was successful in isolating and cutting him off from everyone. And my father passed without me being present. And then it was hidden from me and my family, from all of us, for 45 days. And so the difference with my father was I had never before faced rage with grief.
Mm,
And that was another level um, that I guess God had in a plan for me to move through so that I could support perhaps victims of violence, maybe show up more in the social justice space. I'm still sitting with why or how, but um, the interesting thing is, as much as my brother tried to keep it from me, I literally was standing at the water talking to my father and praying for my father in a sunset in Trincones, Mexico when he was transitioning, and I felt it in my spirit.
mm,
So my father came to me,
mhm,
and I knew I was grieving and crying, and I didn't know this till after he passed. I went back and I was laying in bed one day, I was missing him, and I was just looking at photos, and I was at a retreat in Trincones, Mexico. I was co-facilitating an equinox retreat. And I looked at the date that he had actually transitioned, which was August 21st. And that's where I was. I was literally on the beach talking to my father. There's a photo of me standing at the water. We were having a ceremony, a Yoruba ceremony, and we had took offerings to the water of Yemeya. And that's when I walked away from the group and I started crying and I walked out into the water and I just started praying for him and I told him to go with the sun and go with the light. And then I would find out in October that he had passed. And I would find out in the most horrible way through social media. You know, I was at home and my phone rang and someone said, I think you need to turn on the TV. And I was like, what? What's going on? And I had already been feeling really heavy. Me and my cousin had even had conversations. I even had a candle burning on my altar for my dad. And I had asked her to light a candle because I said, something tells me he's going to transition. And when I got the call, it was, I don't know if you've heard, but they're saying your father passed and your brother put a statement in the media. And as soon as she said my brother put a statement in the media, I knew it. I knew it was going to be true. And it was very painful. It's still painful, but I've moved through the anger.
mhm,
Um, I'm still moving through the grief. I'm sure I'll be moving through the grief for the rest of my life. And the sadness that I couldn't be there to walk my father home the way that I had been blessed to walk my mother home. But I feel like God had other plans. And perhaps a part of that was to learn how to move through the rage, to learn how to move through the grief so that I could support others who have dealt with injustice. Um, Unfortunately, my brother will likely never see any real consequences legally, except, we're still in a legal battle over estate and affairs, but elder abuse is very difficult to prove.
Mhm.
Um, if especially if you have a parent that's protecting the child or the family member, and which I believe was the case with my father. He knew my brother was unwell. We had many talks about it, but I think that he chose to protect him, and whether it was his dementia or not, he was not going to tell authorities anything that would get his son incarcerated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think he was afraid of my brother,
Mhm.
and so Um, it's very sad and very tragic, but my community really showed up for me and supported me through that. And I think the wisdom that I've gained from it will now be of value of someone else who's gone through some kind of injustice.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
So
I'm one of those. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm one of those people that will look for the silver lining. I don't know how you can have a silver lining in having a sibling abused two parents, but somehow I had to find some kind of light at the end of it. And the light for me is that there's a lesson in this that I can bring and share with other people.
Mhm. So, first of all, I just want to say that I'm sorry, heartbroken that you had this experience with family. Um, the worst circumstances that can happen in life when they happen within family just multiplies the damage, the trauma, the pain, the grief. And it's so much harder to get past, if ever.
Yes.
But I will say I know what it's like to lose a beloved father. Uh,
Hmm.
and so first I want to say that I'm glad that you have had and have a father who loved you, who saw you,
Thank you.
mm, mm, and showed you the way as much as he could.
Yes.
You were able to love him back and give love back to him
Mm.
in the ways that you could.
Thank
That's
you.
yeah. It's a
And
wonderful experience, not enough Black women get, and so I'm grateful that you had that experience.
thank you. And my heart goes out to you as well. I know. Being a daddy's girl is a gift.
Yes,
And if you've been blessed to have your father in your life and he was good to you, even if he was difficult. My dad
yes,
was not easy. Our relationship was very layered.
yes, yes,
But
yes.
at the core of it, I love my father. He was a very complex individual, but I love him deeply and I still love him. And he still comes to me. He comes to me in my dreams. He guides me. And I believe that he and my mother are fully lighting my path. And I don't take any steps without them?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So then tell me, so as we move closer to the the magnificence of this podcast, which is the retreat center.
Hmm.
So you move from doing retreats with other people and co-hosting and teaching and sitting with people, all of that. That then voila, here you are now, your own retreat center. And I realized that you had one before, and this one is a
Hmm.
more as more from the original. But tell me, what made you decide to open a retreat center? What made you decide to move from the freedom of just working with other people and being co-host, and I mean that comes with a lot of freedom, not having your own center but still doing the work that you want to do, but not having the responsibility of your own center. So tell me, how did you decide to open your own retreat center and take on that responsibility?
I have to say that it was a culmination of things. I've been wanting a space where I could bring people to smaller groups or even one on one or two or three people or small families. Um, I wanted a space that I could start this before jumping into a really big space where I can host 18 people or 16 people or 14 people. I wanted a smaller space just to sort of get my feet wet and to make sure that this is my path. And I had been talking to my sister and friend, Amy Gowdy, and Amy said, I don't know why you just don't ask for what you want. You're a master manifester. She's like, call up some of your friends and tell them what you want. And so I told another dear friend, Rena Bro, what I wanted to do. And she got me on a call with a group of investors. And from that call, it happened. And I was like, "Wait, what's happening?" Next thing I knew, she was flying into Tulum and we were out looking at places. And we found a really beautiful compound in Tulum that we are making our Zuri sanctuary, and it'll be a space for people to come, for up to 8, maybe 10 people to come and be nurtured and held and have all of the things that they need to support their well-being, whether it's massage, somatic work, sound therapy, nature, um, all the experiences. And so I'm very grateful for my sisters because they were the ones that sort of talked me into this and got me to get out of my comfort zone, and trust me, I'm out of my comfort zone. It's a lot of space, and it's a big undertaking, but the next step and my hope is to buy property in Costa Rica and to open a larger space. So this is sort of going to be my demo, where I get used to the hospitality industry, because it is a different industry. Going from walking into a space where everything is done for you to doing it all yourself are two different things.
Mhm, mhm.
And that's the next step I want to take, is a big, like a lot of land, and building a community, a self-sufficient community of Black and brown indigenous people, aligned hearts in Costa Rica. That's our next step. And so when we presented our business plan, we said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to show you what we can do, show our investors what we can do with a smaller space. And at the end of the year, we're going to have another call and then we're going to move into a bigger space. So that's been the plan. And so far, it's manifesting. So Missouri Retreats is still operating retreats in different locations around the world. We have a retreat coming up March 23rd through the 30th in Guanacaste, Costa Rica, at a fabulous, gorgeous facility. And I have a feeling they're going to introduce us to maybe where our next home will be, because I love the owners. They're really beautiful people. And then we have a retreat coming up at Mawasi Global in April in Marrakesh, Morocco. Um, Guanacaste in Costa Rica is co-ed, and Marrakesh, Morocco is women. And between now and then, we'll be holding space in Tulum. So I hope you and your listeners will definitely make your way and experience what we're offering.
I'm excited. I'm listeners, I'm already signed up.
I love it. I love it. I would be honored to have you.
Yes. I'm already listeners, I'm already planning to go in January, February.
We love it. Yes, come on down.
Mhm, mhm. So, we'll make sure the website information that
SuriRetreats.com.
we will make sure that's on the podcast.
Thank
Or
you.
give us an idea, what would participants look forward to at at Zuri Retreat Center?
Whether you come to our sanctuary or you attend a retreat, you will be nurtured, you will be held, you will be supported. We always have ancestral wisdom keepers. We're teaching ancestral wisdom. We're providing tools for well-being. And we work with and without plant medicines. So if you're looking to, journey with psilocybin or ayahuasca, we have locations for that. And if you are not and you just want to learn more about holistic health practices, we offer that. We have beautiful tea ceremonies and cacao ceremonies. But, we're really bringing the wisdom and the tools to help you elevate and to step more into your conscious awareness and to grow that. And what we see and what we're getting from our testimonials are people whose lives have totally changed. I have a client recently who created one of the most beautiful videos I've seen. I didn't even ask her to do this. It's one thing you go ask people to give a testimonial. She actually posted her story on social media the other day. She's a cancer survivor, and she came to one of my first retreats in it was like 2020 or something like that. And she came to one of my ayahuasca retreats when I was really doing Aya, and she said, it changed her life, and she got the download that she was going to become a crown healer and help women heal their crowns and, trauma around hair and really embrace their natural hair. And she went home and her business has exploded. She stepped into her
Mm.
purpose. And,
Yeah.
she was doing hair regularly, just regular hair, perms and all that stuff. And now she has a natural hair care business, and she's really in teaching Black and brown women to embrace their curls and their natural hair. And her business has, just blown up. And she said that it had to do that ceremony, that retreat changed her life. And, I see everything from that to men who come to us to say they know now that they need to be more present in their children's lives or show up more for their wives. Or, I mean, I get veterans who've come in with PTSD who are now able to sleep. I've helped, more people than I can count get off antidepressants and get on a natural protocol. And so this is the work we're doing. And we're elevating lives, we're changing lives. And that is such a gift. And it's what keeps me going. Is that if I ever question myself, it seems like the universe or God will always put someone in my path to say, you know what? Because of that retreat, my life changed. And that's when I'm like, okay, I can't give up. I can't give up no matter how many challenges I face. We're here to support people. And I know that that's the work I'm here to do.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. I'm so excited for Zuri retreats, and I'm I'm equally excited to see what else. Know this is just the beginning. I trust that this is just the beginning of your healing work. That the universe has so much more. God's
Yes.
spirit has so much more for you, and I look forward. I'm glad. I hope that I can witness some of it. Uh,
You will. We're putting it out there. You will.
yes. I also want to thank you for taking time to be on the podcast, because I know that you have been in the midst of groundbreaking work, getting the center set up and getting the online presence and all. You just been so busy, and yet you found time. You made time. You didn't find time. You made time to be
Thank
on
you,
the
Elise.
Talking Back podcast, and I appreciate that. I'm sending you
Thank
nothing but
you.
blessings and prayers of prosperity and wholeness and peace for you. And I look forward to seeing you sometime next year.
Thank you, my sister. I know I will see you, and it's going to be amazing. And thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to be on the podcast, if you want to share your story, your wisdom, your strategies for change, please email me at blackwomentalkingback@gmail.com. We're lining up panelists all the time. We're going to do some panelists, and we're going to do a lot of individual interviews. So there are a lot of sisters have written books this last couple of years. I want to interview sisters who are writing their stories, who are telling their stories in book form, those who are doing new research and policy work, just our gamut, the full gamut. So if you're interested in being on the podcast, please email me and let me know. Once again, I love you all. I love you, every single one of you. I love you. Until the next time, don't forget to follow us.